everything has patterns. We have life patterns, we have daily patterns, and we can see those sort of things in terms of routines and going from here to work or whatever we do. We follow patterns all the time, but we're not very aware of them. Once you start to tune into them, you realise they're everywhere. They're in the weather, they're in the daily cycle of the sun coming up and going down, the designs of the plants themselves, or the structure of soil. All of these different things have continuous looping patterns of relationship going on, and one thing feeds and services another. And we're part of that intelligence. That's the thing that I think we've sort of forgotten, and I guess industrialisation has pushed us in that direction. That we assume we're top of a pyramid. Actually, we're just part of a very, very big connected system, and every little bit of that system matters because it's capable of influencing the life effects of other bits of that system. So if we choose to interfere and mess with those patterns without necessarily knowing what we're doing, we can cause awful amounts of damage, which comes back to saying, why not pay attention much more to place? Why not think much, much more about understanding the dynamics of a place in terms of the patterns of activity that go on within it, even down to the tiniest things like the flow of air in an environment can make a big difference to the feel of that environment for the people that are working there. And yet we often build buildings without any awareness of much cognizance of what that building's doing in relation to the airflows around it and inside it. And so there's plenty of different ways in which the pattern plays out, and it's just a matter of learning to see it and then using it as part of a design process. So we then design human interventions with that in mind, rather than just leaving it to chance. Perhaps there was a lesson to learn about how nature grows and develops that children could learn from, which wasn't just talking about environment and sustainability as something to do with green things. It was actually much more to do with systems, and that those systems are life support systems. Examine what nature does and to try and link that into day-to-day human life. Energy is a flow, and it comes into a place and it goes out again. And in the permaculture work that we do with our communities and naturally smart places, what we're looking at is holding energy on a site. So when it comes into the site, you hold it in many ways through different strategies to keep it in that site for as long as possible before you lose it again. Energy is one of the interesting starting points for the project because it gives them a way of thinking about flow as well as the physical nature of energy. And I think that in itself is quite interesting because in a sense it mirrors a little bit of what nature does. The idea of storage of energy and release of energy over time and passive and active forms of energy that are used. Everything's connected to everything else. And yet what we do when we teach kids is we tend to break everything up into little fragmented pieces. And what Naturally Smart tries to do from the very outset is help kids to start to think as designers of a system, an interconnected system and an interdependent system. Getting kids into that really, really deep inquiry of continually hassling and nibbling away at a solution to say, well, we're happy with it so far, but, and not just to walk away and say it's done. My vision for Naturally Smart is that we end up creating the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Planet. We actually construct collectively the most magical, massive book of information and actions that all hold sustainable solutions inside them, that are proven over time and that have continually evolved. So it's never stopping. So that book never finishes. It's an emergent book, but it's what Douglas Adams sort of had in his Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but we'll keep it to the planet at this point. Whilst it sounds mad, I actually think it's very doable. I think we're at the point now where we can do this, that we can bring people together both in physical contact to talk about solutions, but also using the technology, share it globally. And so the idea of building something which is a sort of global resource for the 21st century to get through it without too much damage to the world around us, and actually probably building a regenerative knowledge as a result of what we do. So we start to regenerate rather than damage ecosystems. Seems to be a pretty good idea in terms of a utopian vision, but it's also a practical vision, because we know a lot about how to do that. We know how to intervene in damaged ecosystems and start to turn them round. I don't think it's dreaming, I think it's real. And building a compelling argument for why, which is also what we're trying to do. It'll be a much nicer world to live in, because instead of having a narrative of destruction and damage, you're actually having a narrative of positive results.